So today I spent the day procrastinating from doing my work assignment, which means that anything and everything was more interesting to me. So after half cleaning my bedroom, trying to make cookies from scratch and then giving up and using a cookie mix, getting depressed at how unhealthy the cookies were, so throwing them in the trash, Googling healthy ingredients and then getting even more depressed at how expensive they are, so then subsequently fishing the cookies out of the trash and consuming them, all in one sitting, and then arguing with my dog about the Marvel franchise, I figured I'd do another 16 personalities tier ranking. So really just a regular Tuesday. So I've already covered what bug each type would be, which of them I would trust with my pets, how many of them would suit the color quercitron yellow, how each of them would respond to being taxidermied after death, and which of them I would trust to be the godparents of my hypothetical child. I've decided to go with a more generic one today, because I'm actually feeling a bit switched on today, so I feel like I can handle something a little bit more broad.
But the ENFP couldn't handle something more broad. Her tier ranking got so chaotic and out of hand that she lost interest, never to return again.
No! Narrator, I will not be silenced by you again. I'm here to subvert the stereotype that we are purely chaotic. We ENFPs can actually be immensely focused and can finish the things that we start, darn it. So with that in mind, let me take my focus medication. It's this hat. I'm wearing this hat now. See, what I'm actually doing here is making an astute commentary about the fact that most medications are actually placebos and the power has existed within us all along. Actually, no, I don't know whether I believe that or not. We are staying focused. Today? What am I doing today? That's not me losing my train of thought. That's just me getting distracted by the fact that every object in this room momentarily turned into a monkey for a second there. Today I am ranking the 16 personalities based on how well I vibe with each of them. And get ready for some real specific categorization because I definitely know what I mean by that, and I will be making some clear distinctions and definitions here. So the first tier is besties. We vibe instantly. No further need to describe that one. The second tier is vibe tribe. This one's for those with whom I also vibe really easily, but it's slightly different. The third tier is the vibe is hard to describe, and I'm at a loss for words with that one. Ha! Just kidding, I'm never at a loss for words. This tier... And so that's why I think that I should be allowed to take free sample handfuls from the nut buckets at the supermarket. The fourth tier is would be willing to bribe for a vibe. This is for types with whom I really want to vibe, but there seems to be some kind of barrier there. And I don't usually condone bribery, just on a moral level, but when I really want something, I'm willing to completely flake on my moral principles. Just for a second though. And the final tier is subscribe, because like a YouTuber, sometimes when trying to connect with your audience isn't working, you've just got to beg for a subscription. And yes, this one's a stretch because I was married to the idea of all the tiers rhyming, but only after I came up with the rhyming scheme in tier 2, which explains why tier 1 annoyingly doesn't follow it. But I'm okay with it. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, how did this happen? Narrator?
Because the ENFP tended to only see the fun qualities and perceived infinite potential for good in people, their subconscious had cast a blind spot over any negative interactions or flaws in their relationships with said people. This resulted in a heavily biased tier ranking.
Whoops. Okay, I clearly need to go and take my somber medication so that I can be grounded a little bit more in the truth. I'll be right back. Okay, well, that was certainly sobering. You know, it just reminds me of the demoralizingly vapid nature of human existence. And so that's why I think that I should be allowed to take free sample handfuls from the nut buckets at the supermarket. Alright, back to the tier ranking. INTJ is first. Okay, so disclaimer, I love literally everyone and I think that there's something to love about every personality type. Also, we are all individuals who are very nuanced. That said, INTJs suck and I hate them. Nah, just kidding. They just don't give a lot of positive affirmations, I find, and their insights are mostly negative more than optimistic, which can make it really hard to find the vibe. I am, however, willing to slightly compromise my values and integrity to get someone by whom I am intimidated to like me, so I guess they would belong in would be willing to bribe for a vibe, though I'm unsure what bribe they would accept. Maybe my collection of moths? Nah, but I couldn't trust them with moths because I doubt INTJs have lighting in their homes. I'll think on it. Next is ISTJ. Now, it's hard not to be biased here because my ISTJ friend has told me that I'm clingy and erratic, and no, I am most certainly not your friend. So I guess we don't vibe. despite how swimmingly I thought our friendship was going until then. Incidentally, I did actually try bribing her for a vibe at school, but she told on me to the teacher. So on that day, I not only lost the friendship, but also my 72-piece set of crayons, which admittedly was only a 19 set at that point because of both my absent-mindedness and the fact that I get peckish in class. ESTJs, on the other hand, well, I love my ESTJs, and I always know where I stand with them. All I have to do to maintain the vibe is occasionally let them fix and organize my life, which is a win-win. Even when they hurt my feelings by throwing away the artwork that I one day created on a whim because it, quote, looks like vomit. I miss the artwork, but it was worth it for the friendship. ESFPs are an instant vibe, despite how confusingly shallow they can appear sometimes. I don't know what goes through their head on the day-to-day, but I like to think that their unwillingness to listen to my ideas comes from a genuine place of love. I'm not sure how, but somehow. ENFJs are my fellow soul searchers, passionate about ideas, keen for a deep dive, and extremely validating of all of my weird and inconsistent emotions. My only qualm with them is that they have all these ideals about how people and relationships should be, without much consideration for how people actually are in reality. Okay, how did this happen? Now, INTPs are people with whom I definitely vibe. We have really great chats and I genuinely admire the perspectives that they have to offer. For some reason, they choose to do research into topics that I personally don't have to research in order to speak about them accurately. And that just really helps to fill in the gaps that I didn't know were there in the impressions that I have about things. Now, we can go as many as 7 years without seeing or speaking to one another, which makes the vibe a bit hard to describe. But trust me, it's there. ISTPs are just enigmas to me. For a while, I just thought that all ISTPs were just shy, but now I'm starting to think that they're actually missing that part of their brain that craves human connection, and that's a legitimate part of the brain. I know, because I have it. So sadly, I have not found really any vibe with any ISTP, but I would certainly be willing to bribe for one. I need validation and love. I've heard that they like milk, so I might try that next time I see one in the wild. The metaphorical wild, of course, not the literal wild. Why would an ISTP be in the literal wild? INFPs are also an instant vibe. My best friend is one. Oops, sorry. She doesn't like it when I use that term because she thinks that the term best friend should be reserved for just one friend in my life, whereas I use it for several hundred. I want to respect her wishes, but also I don't really understand. Because why would I want to have just one best friend in my life? That's so limiting. Also, friendship is... And so long story short, she ended up giving me the silent treatment for 3 whole months before I even noticed that there was anything wrong. Thankfully, I'm an open book, and so we just had a conversation about it and I was honest about how I felt, and she didn't say much, but I assumed that everything is fine between us now because she would have voiced if she had a problem, right? INFPs are known for being forthcoming with their feelings, and they certainly don't hold quiet grudges. ISFJs are an instant vibe because crafts! Crafts all day, every day! ENTJs less so. Is it a vibe if someone tries to pull you into a crypto scam? Because I'm still waiting for the return on my money and it's been 3 years. And I've tried to text this particular ENTJ about it, but I actually realized a few days ago that the phone number they gave me had only 5 digits. But like, that's a legitimate phone number for some overseas countries, right? Maybe they're overseas. I'm sure they're good on their word. I just have to keep waiting. ESFJs are also an instant vibe because baking! Cupcakes with little icing swirlies on them, and cups of tea in pajamas, and going door to door giving away baked goods, and then accidentally knocking on the door of a crime house and taking weird pills because of our people pleasing. Okay, ISFP. I really appreciate how ISFPs keep me grounded and aware of my surroundings. I feel that no harm can befall me when I'm with an ISFP, and I genuinely think that I've
become more street smart
because of them. Vibe tribe. ESTP. Okay, so I accidentally ended up in prison because of an ESTP. Either I did the plan wrong or I misunderstood their Facebook Marketplace advertisement for friendship. I think I must have accidentally sent the money to the wrong place or something because I don't fully understand what happened there. Thankfully, they bailed me out of jail and all it cost me was 2 times the bail money. But they said they're going to give me my half back. I just have to meet them tomorrow by the tree in the park with their half of the money, and then we'll get food together. But they did say their bank was on holiday for a few days, so I'm gonna have to pay, but they'll get me back next time. I'm just excited to hang out with them again. So I guess we're doing great. I really love INFJs, and they seem to really love me too, which is just so validating. I do wish, however, that they would stop taking things I say so seriously. Like, sometimes I want to explore what it might be like to, I don't know, be a famous dictator from history. So I'll do a bit of a role play. And that doesn't have to say something about me as a person or my political beliefs, even if I do accidentally start a cult in the process. ENTP now. For every cult that I've accidentally started, there's been an ENTP egging me on from the sidelines, only for me to find out later that they've started their own rival cult and are planning to enter political war with me. And then I have to find a team of advisors and set up a protocol and decide what I believe and make sure I don't accidentally sacrifice anyone in the process. It's just exhausting. That's why ENTPs are no longer allowed at my tabletop RPG games. Well, to be fair, I did make that rule, but then I stuck to it only for like a week because I realized that tabletop RPGs are quite frankly boring without fellow NE users. So I guess I gotta put them in Vibe Tribe. And finally, ENFP. Obviously instant besties. I actually have to be careful when there are multiple of us in the same room so that I don't accidentally overdose on rainbows. Hardly anything makes sense when we're together, and it must be supremely annoying for others, but we really need each other. They're the only ones who can understand the profoundly misunderstood experience of being an ENFP. The desire to fit in while simultaneously knowing that we never will because we're too deep and nuanced. The disappointment at constantly being called scattered and clumsy when we're so much more than that. The crushing burden of knowing that no one will ever live up to our ideals, but choosing to still cling to those ideals anyway. It's a journey. We're the hardest type to be. Okay, so I guess that's it. 6 A4 pages later, and having exerted more energy than anyone should at 36 weeks pregnant, I am most certainly going to need to nap for 3 hours after this. So just a regular Tuesday, am I right? Let this be a testament, ladies and gentlemen, to the fact that ENFPs can start what they finish. Oh no, the monkeys are back.